Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest and I'm in the middle of a job. I usually film the intros at the beginning, but the customer was here for a while waiting on somebody to pick them up because they left their car at my house. Now, the other day, this is going to be an interesting video. Stick around because it boils down to a used car dealership screwing over my customer. And I'll tell you how that happened because I've got the evidence right here. I'm replacing a part. Well, rewind to a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do pre-purchase inspections, but it sounds kind of like a good idea. And right after I made that video the same day, I had a customer who I've been working on their car for years say, hey, I want to buy a new car. Can you do a pre-purchase inspection? And I was like, perfect, let's do it. I charged them pretty cheap and they were there for the whole process. We went through everything. The car was crashed. Here's some pictures of the crash. So we've got some reports from that, and we were looking through everything, and the rebuilt looked good, and the test drive looked good, and it was passing all of its tests. And so I gave my customer a thumbs up to buy the vehicle, and they did. And a week later, it had a catalyst low efficiency problem, and the person was like, "Oh yeah, that's really weird. Don't know about that. It's probably O2 sensors." And I was like, "No, it's not. It's a catalyst system low efficiency code. It's not an O2 sensor code." And I was like, it needs a new catalytic converter. So I gave them a quote, and I was obviously cheaper than the scam shop they bought it from. So I just was starting to dig into the project here, and you won't believe what I found. Okay, so starting out, I'm just gonna get everything ready. I've got all my tools out, all the ones that I think I'm gonna need. I'm gonna go ahead and jack this up and put it on some jack stands and try and do that safely, because I already know anytime I'm gonna do anything on the exhaust system, usually even manifolds, I'm gonna have to get underneath it to loosen a couple of bolts. So first things first, up safely on some jack stands, and we'll give it the wiggle test to make sure that won't fall down on me. One time I gave a car the wiggle test and it did fall off the jack stand, so I always do that. Had some tools fall out of my pocket, but I always like to check and make sure that I've got those jack stands in the perfect place, or the most ideal place that I can find. So I'll readjust them a couple of times. Once I figure out the spot on one side, I'll usually just put it in the opposite spot on the other side. So let's get this other side up real quick. And the jack stand, usually under the control arm or subframe or something that's pretty sturdy. Alright, also just going to leave the jack touching there. That'll make it easier. I've had a fan blowing on the catalytic converter the whole time to help cool it down, so surely that helped a little so that I can touch some stuff. It's still a little too hot to handle, but taking the heat shield off and some bolts and stuff like that shouldn't be too crazy. These top bolts aren't burning hot, so I can take those out by hand. Everything else, though, feels a little bit hotter. For example, here you'll see when I take this lower one off, I have to set it down pretty quickly because it's just a little too hot for my hand. And I'll come back later and grab them with some other stuff anyways. That's always tricky though, whenever I'm doing a catalytic converter or something that's like the exhaust system. A lot of times customers will have just driven them, so it's really hard to handle them for a while. Now, so far so good. This heat shield's like a little caught up on that oil line for the turbo. Obviously, this heat shield has a couple of issues of its own. We'll look at that in a second. It looks fine when I pull it out here, but it's a little bit more nefarious than it looks. Okay, can't really remove this upper one easily, so I'm just gonna get started taking off any other bolts I can see. Looks like there's a support bracket on the right side of the catalytic converter there, and it's a little too hot to handle. It's even hotter than those heat shield bolts that were on the front, so I'm just gonna try and use my tool as much as I can. Watch, I'll put my finger on the first one here and it's way too hot, so I've got to come back and use a screwdriver to hold the nut in the second one, because even for just that second it took me to tilt the wrench up like that was way too hot on my finger. I didn't want to do that again. Now it's just a matter of undoing all the bolts that look like they're holding the catalytic converter in place. That's connecting it to anything else. There's obviously going to be a couple of sensors as well. up at that bracket, and then I'll crawl underneath and give a good look at everything. Basically, when I'm first starting like this, I'm just taking off the most obvious things first. Yeah, just let that bracket fall to the ground. It was so hot. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use my O2 sensor wrenches and go ahead and take out these O2 sensors. There's 2 of them on this catalytic converter, so I'm just gonna make sure I've got everything organized right here and pop those free. In fact, just to disconnect the first O2 sensor, I'm gonna have to take off the car's beauty cover. It's obviously got some sort of weird security bit on it. I just got something that would fit and got that out of place. All right, now I can see the connector for that O2 sensor. I'm gonna make sure I put the oil cap back on and that bolt in place. I'm trying to keep everything organized, but you know, doing mobile stuff, I'm trying to just keep everything close as well, so it can get a little tricky keeping everything organized. That exposes everything, so I can take this sensor out all the way now and make sure that once this is broken free, I'll take the connector out and then I'll just twist it out all the way by hand. And it's got to be about this time that I noticed something seriously wrong with this catalytic converter. I noticed mostly when I got underneath it. Okay, so here's what we're looking at under here. That's probably why the catalytic converter doesn't work. An old dingbat from 𝕬𝖆𝖓𝖓𝖊𝑑 should have known that, so that's totally on them. He had that hidden with the front cover here, because when I looked down I thought, oh, the front 2 bolts are missing. I didn't even see the dent the first time I looked down, and I was looking at this, I'm like, oh, this one's smaller, but it looks like that has the same bend in it. And lo and behold, he knew that that catalytic converter had a dent in it. There's no way they didn't, because they had to replace the cover just to hide that. So we might have to give them a shout out. Okay, so I just got off the phone with my customer, and she's understandably pretty disillusioned, especially well, particularly with the shop that sold the car. And I honestly didn't even recognize it. I just wasn't even looking for a dent in it, you know? I didn't even recognize it when I did the pre-purchase inspection because of the heat shield, but that's not something I would have seen either way. You know, I did crawl underneath there and give it a good look up from underneath, but that's on the front side. It was totally hidden by that heat shield. The only thing I didn't notice was the 2 missing bolts on the bottom, and I probably wouldn't have thought much about that anyways. Just, I would have thought, oh, they didn't want to buy a new heat shield, no big deal. I would have never pulled that off in an inspection. But I can't wait to get this part out of here and give it a better look, especially down inside of it. This design is going to be really nice to give us a good look down into it. So stick around, and if you think this is interesting, make sure you're subscribed and leave this video a thumbs up. Okay, obviously, if you don't know what catalytic converters are like, they're honeycomb inside. I mean, the channels are just very, very microscopically thin. They're not microscopic, but you have to have them perfectly aligned, but you can just barely see light through them. They're so small. So obviously, any sort of impact like that's gonna crumple the catalytic converter and render it inefficient. That's very inefficient right there. That's the definition. So let's pull this out. I've got that sensor, and I have to unplug it, so that's why I already had it jacked up. The plug for that's right here, just chilling right up against the AC compressor, so I'll probably do something about that afterwards. And then I've got these 4 bolts underneath the catalytic converter, and technically make it 6. I just saw the 4 replacement studs that come with the new catalytic converter and the 4 nuts, but there's also 2 nuts that aren't going to be as rusty holding it to the motor. Again, though, that's the nice thing about Utah is, even though this is on a catalytic converter, the rust is so minimal. I could take these off by hand. I'll use an impact gun because it's quick and that's just the right way to do it. But I could probably break these free and twist them off by finger. That's how easy it is. I just can't believe that. I went up there to the shop. The guy who owns the shop, I'm assuming he was the only one there, saw me in my truck sitting in the road, and he came out to talk to me because he thought I was a tow truck driver. He thought I was going to tow one of his cars he had sitting on the city street in front of his little parking lot area, and I was just parked out there too, waiting for my customer. He came over, he's like, "Oh, are you going to tow something?" And I was like, no, I'm just here to do an inspection. And I had the sticker for my YouTube channel on the side of my truck. And I did the inspection on the vehicle. This guy's there the whole time. No doubt he saw the sticker. That's why he thought I was towing his truck. And I'm, you know, why wouldn't he look it up? Especially if he knew I was doing an inspection on his car. Man, he had to have been sweating bullets. He was a little nervous, but he was young, and I was just like, oh, he's just selling a car or whatever. But I didn't think, you know, there was anything sketchy going on because I did a good inspection. And aside from this, they did everything right. Like, why would you try to hide this? I don't get it. It's obviously going to be an issue. So dumb, just trying to rip people off. Oh, perfect. The studs came out. That just makes removal twice as easy. Get that on there. Nope, tough angle. So yeah, I wonder what he thought when he saw I was the one that did the inspection and then bought the car thinking, man, I hope that issue doesn't pop up or what. Let me know. I'd like to talk to the guy. What were you thinking? Because hopefully you see this video. Could have even put a cheap catalytic converter in. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't think I had to take these two off. I think when I take the catalytic converter band, like a V-band connection off up there, then I think I can just pick it straight up. At least I'll do that because the other two bolts are behind the catalytic converter, and this bracket's not separating easily. So I think the bolt hidden behind there tells me that the catalytic converter can come out first by itself. Okay, here's the new catalytic converter. Let's just give it a look since I got up here. You can see how small those little square honeycomb shapes are. Give it a little better look on this side at just how small those passages are for air to flow through. So if you crumple those, you're not gonna be flowing air through your exhaust. Just nothing about it. No way around that fact. Okay, this is what those catalytic converters are made out of. This brittle material, and that's how small those holes are. So like I was saying, it is brittle and just crumbles, but if you collapse it, there's no airflow anyways. And that's why if you clog them or melt them, they get an issue too, because as you can imagine, it doesn't take much to clog those little holes. That's what's got the nice expensive stuff in it though that you can sell to the scrap yards. Oh, I forgot to do that O2 sensor. Let's do that. And then I think the only thing holding it on really is that clamp. So I just want to make sure, yeah, I don't yoink that O2 sensor and cause $80 to $120 in extra damage for no reason. Obvious. That wrench stopper out of destroyed my knuckles. I was counting on it, but I had to put even more force into that than I expected. A little rusty, but it's broken free. See, probably nothing on that. We'll be able to tell when I get it out though. Probably will probably see chunks. It's that fragile. I think I'm gonna have to put leather gloves on though, because it's still pretty hot. Yeah, crushed. They cleaned it out, or is that just blowing down the exhaust? No hiding that, bruh. You can see through all the holes, the damage. You can't hide this. See if I can get a better angle. Here, look at that. Yikes. That's what I said, it crumbles. It crumbles almost like a gem or some sort of like crystal. It follows those lines. Pretty hard to see in there. Let's see. Can just see the piece is missing in there. I really can't believe that. What do you guys think? I think they deliberately hit it, but I don't understand why they would do that. I think they're just ripping people off. Do you guys think there's another reason they would do that? Or do you think they're just taking advantage of people? All right, now here's the fun part, making sure that the new part fits in and getting it fitted up, because I always seem to have one or two things I put on prematurely. Something needs to be put on first, and then I'll get to something that I'm supposed to put on after first. So that's the fun part about putting stuff together. You can't take stuff off in the wrong order, but you can put it back together in the wrong order for sure. There we go. Probably just get that out afterwards, no big deal. I need to make sure that gasket gets on there before I set this all the way down. Let's see if I can get that into one of those holes that it doesn't belong in. Nope, just set it in the pipe and we'll put the gasket on now. So now this little bracket comes free. Oh, that's the problem. Weird bracket. Why? That's not even a. That's not. What? What was Chevy thinking 4 years ago? How'd they even get this in there? Look at this bent bracket. You're never getting this apart without pushing those studs back out. So they should have just welded that. Honestly, it's not serviceable. You take those nuts off and you're not doing anything with that. So my concern was being able to get that all hooked back up together if I bolt this up prematurely. Let's go ahead and try it though. Yeah, and of course I'm giving them a good deal, but they thought they were getting a decent deal on the car, so they weren't too upset at first when they thought it was just normal wear, like, oh, the catalytic converter went out. And if that was normal, they weren't too upset because if they got a good deal on the vehicle, then maybe just turn into a normal purchase after paying $1,000 for a new catalytic converter. In this case though, they were just straight up taking advantage of, I think. Tricky. That's what I'm saying, I get ahead of myself. If I would have gone any further, I wouldn't have been able to service that heat shield without taking some other stuff off. Well, the only good news is after this, their car will pass emissions. They bought this specific catalytic converter. They picked it out. Obviously, I didn't want to sell them the most expensive one. I gave them a couple different options and told them, hey, pick one out that you're comfortable with. They ended up picking one out that I didn't even recommend. This one does have a 5-year warranty though, so the labor should be good. This should be working, and if it doesn't work in the next 5 years for some reason, they'll get a new one. The only silver lining though. Okay, that heat shield's on. Let's go ahead and maybe hook this. No, I think I've got to go down there and get all that lined up first. That's looking a little tricky. Well, I thought I only had 4 studs. I already put 2 on, and I have 4 more, and I was like, uh-oh. And I just had this thing sitting here, and when I glanced up, I realized those 2 studs go right there on the side, right there by that heat shield, and that's what connects it. I forgot I already took that off. That was like the first thing I did, and I was like, is that the only support that the upper catalytic converter has, is that band? In my head when I was taking it off, that's what I was thinking, but obviously, yeah, it's got a good support there, and we're good to go back together. All right, I just realized I brought a socket and no wrench. That's fine. I'm just trying to get this all lined up, because yeah, I should be able to do that because I don't have those studs in yet. Just slide this up past there, and if not, just maybe we'll try this. Okay, got one going. Got those going. Now I just gotta get one more. My shoulder. Oh yes, perfect try first time. Oh. Okay, it's probably been close to an hour, and I've been taking my time because I was really caught off guard by this. I think you could maybe do this in an hour if you were trying to do it quickly and efficiently, if you were dealing with minimal rust especially. It's going to take me an hour and a half though. Let's go ahead and just casually put this back together. There's 2 other nuts that weren't as rusty. Here's one of them. Those are the ones I want to reuse. Oh wait. This always happens. This always happens with aftermarket parts. What do you know? Look at these studs. I'm gonna have to go stack like 8 washers on these studs, because if I tighten my nut all the way down, you see my dilemma. I'm only getting down to here, and that's just gonna wiggle around and vibrate. So this always happens. That's what I'm saying. It's always the stud's too wide because it's wider than the one from the factory, and they just cheaped out on parts. Or yeah, they just got these studs that don't match the originals with threads. At least that little space between, really short, 1/4 of an inch on that versus 1/2 an inch on that. And that's all the difference, baby. All right, at least I've got some studs out there, so I'll find something like a nut this size that just slips over that, and then we'll run that. All right, look what I found. I got some nuts that are big enough to slip over these studs. So in theory and in practice, I can put them on like this and run the nuts down, and then they'll take up that whole space in between. Just a little spacer instead of like 10 washers. Oh, I just lost that other one. Oh, this is it. It just blends in with the other ones. And if you notice, I'm going to put them on face to face. That's just because they both have faces. 13 or is that strong? Nice. I like it when they keep the same size instead of making stuff a different size going back together. That's always a plus. But that evens out the extra gap in the stud there. Looks like it fits up well though, so that's a plus. Just get everything hand tight right now, and we'll finish up at the top, and then we'll come back down here and tighten everything up wrench tight. Okay, I said it. I knew I was gonna do it. I left this band off, and I don't think I have enough room to get it on right now. So I've got to go down there and loosen stuff up so I can get enough wiggle room to slip this band on, unless I can slip it on and squeeze it around. That might work, but that should have gone on earlier. Now that ain't gonna work. That heat shield keeps it from spinning. All right, told you. Yeah. And I've already got that ring gasket on there, and the lower gasket's on too. That up again. Let's get one that first. Then, boom. Oh no. Put it on backwards. That nut's supposed to be in the back. Harder to get off. Clamp this back up to the 𝘮𝑝ski, tiny little turbo, and get the shield back on and everything tightened up. We'll be good to go. Crank her down, downtown. Till it stops squeaking or till the bolt breaks. Oh, I'm just kidding. About that tight. Tighten up the ones on the bottom, I think. Good to do that. Sure those are extra tight so the gasket doesn't leak, and the bracket, that's fine. All right, heat shield on. Let's get out of here. I think I'm done on the ground. Can get this off the jack stands too. Idiots. Use dealerships, man. All right, let's get these studs on, and then that bracket on that really holds this caddy secure, the caddy converti, and then we'll be done with working. Oh, the O2 sensors. You want to take it off the jack stands? Yeah. I think the other thing I was going to do before I left, or no, before I'm done, is disconnect the battery to reset the codes. I don't want to do that with my code reader. Oh, that nut. small in the middle. Okay, so same thing here, just 2 nuts take up that space because again our stud is too long. Nothing we can't fix with a little bit of ingenuity though. Yeah. I like to use the copper 𝕮𝖆𝖊𝖓𝖊𝑑 because the graphite kind, like graphite particles, break down, copper particles just flatten. So the copper doesn't break down as much. That's got a lot of oil in it though. This has been sitting for a while. Just mixer it. Start yelling. Look, this is all you need, watch. Or else you're gonna be bathing in this for a week. Just kidding. Oh no! Probably like twice that much. There you go. Yeah, this stuff will spread though. Not as bad as the graphite one. That's like what it's known for. Like when you try and wipe it up. Like that. All right, let's fold this inside out. Yeah. I don't know what hit them, but if I touch your clothes or whatever with this, it just keeps spreading. I made a mess. All for the best. Step in the process. This stuff lasts years.
They 100% replaced that cover.
Yeah, they covered it up for sure. Covered it up literally. Okay, I'm excited to be finishing this up. Like I said, I still need to disconnect the battery and make sure the computer resets. Don't jam this plug in backwards or I'll be sorry for breaking something. I flipped this tray over and lost this little screw. I can't stand these. Always got some sort of new safety screw they're using. Luckily I found it. It hadn't made its way to the serpentine belt, but it didn't hit the ground. Anyways, I used the safety bit for that to take it out. I don't think I have the right safety bit for it, but it worked. Yeah, just small enough to go into the inner triangle, so whatever, we'll put that back. I usually just hand tight beauty covers on motors anyways, because if somebody ever needs to get in there and look at it, it doesn't make sense that there's some sort of safety bit in the way. And just like that, we're done. Let's reset the battery. Open sesame. Way. Here we go. Literally no space to open this. What do we got? Fuses under here? Show me the goods. Okay, so we should start now and not have a check engine. All right, that's a job well done. I'm relieved to get this fixed. At least it's fixed. Hopefully the other shop will take some accountability for this. I suggested to my customer that she tries to get them to pay for it, and if so, I probably won't mention the name of the shop. But if you like this video, make sure you're subscribed and leave it a thumbs up. And you can show me some support by donating at the links in the description if you want to buy me a warm drink or something. Let me know what you think about all this. It looks pretty clear to me, but we'll see what they do about paying to fix this, or if they don't, maybe I'll let you know. Maybe I'll let you know who it was. This car is ready to hit the road. That's a job well done. Check out the next video up here. I'll see you there.